So you want to learn Python? Hi, my name is Josh, and I am here to guide you to learn the basics of programming in Python. First off, let's talk about what is Python. Python is an object-oriented programming language that is easy to learn but hard to master. With my help, you'll be able to understand the syntax, which is another fancy word for saying how things are written, and the object-oriented aspect of the language itself. So first, let's start by downloading Python. We go to python.org, and then we click on the link Downloads. Once there, we'll be able to see that there's links for the different OS that you have on your computer. For example, Mac and Linux. For me, it'll be Windows, so I'll click Windows. And then here I'll be able to see the Python latest release. So I'll click that and I'll use the installation wizard. Once that is installed, we're going to go and find an IDE. What is an IDE? An IDE stands for an Integrated Developing Environment. It's basically a software that allows you to code in that specific language. So we want to use Visual Studio Code. You download for Windows. Same thing for different OSs. And once that is installed, what we want to do, we want to create a new project or workspace. So we go here, make a new folder. I will call it Python Introduction. There we go. Once that is done, then we can start coding. Well, first we need to create a file, a new Python file. Let's call this file first lesson.py. You need to make sure you always put the .py because then it's telling this IDE, hey, this is a Python file. Now to make sure our Python was correctly installed, let's do a little test. Print parentheses and quotes. Inside the quotes, type hello world. And we run Python file in terminal to see our output. And there we have it. Hello world. Now, let's talk about what we just did here. Print is a inline keyword in Python that says, I'm going to write to the terminal to see an output. For example, I wanted to print out a string, which is a set of words or an amalgamation of characters that is created into a word. Hello world. Hence, its output becomes those two words. I could also put different things in a string, like my name, Josh. Output's there. It could be as long as you want it. Like so. And it will still output that string. Now, strings aren't the only things we can output. We can also output numbers. For example, if I want to output the number 5. Right click, run Python file in terminal. And there we have it. Now, numbers in Python are considered integers or ints. For example, I can create a number 8, and let's say I want to add it to another number 2, like so. This just creates a simple arithmetic that once we print and we run Python file in terminal, it outputs the number 10. Addition is not the only thing we could do in Python. We can also subtract, like so. Multiply. And divide. 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Now, do you see that little 0.0 at the end? That is an output of a number, but is considered a double. A double allows us to have more than just the base 10 integer. We can have 1.8. We can have 5.6. We can even put 7.8, or I'm sorry, 98. A double allows you to have a set specific amount of decimal points. Now, with that being said, trying to print a lot of operations by putting numbers, for example, let's say I want a big order of operation kind of problem, like 8 minus 2 plus 6 times 3, for example. And let's say we have more formulas that we want to put into this. It'd be kind of a hassle just putting that all into print. Well, that time can be saved by putting it into something called a variable. Think of a variable as a container in Python. For example, if I could put result, right, as the name of my variable, equal, which basically is an interpreter to assigning it to something, this specific arithmetic. Just copy and paste. And now that I've told Python, hey, result is a variable, and I want you to assign it to this specific arithmetic. Now, Python does follow order of operations. So when we print result, and we run Python in terminal, the output becomes 24. Now, variables can also store more than just integers in arithmetic. It can also store strings, which is what we talked about earlier. We can put and the world. And if we print the exact same, right, name as a variable, this variable will be able to print out whatever output that I wanted to, which was a string. And if we run said file in terminal, there we have it. Now the strange thing is, strings can also have a form of arithmetic. It's called concatenation. Let's say I want to add more to just Josh and the world. Let's say I want to add another sentence or add on to said sentence, Josh and the world have a good relationship. This is a very odd sentence. But if you run Python file in terminal, you can see that this has been added to our variable, which is a string. And it's really neat to have this in mind, because we can see that we can create methods, which we'll talk about later in a different video. We can have a set of instructions that allows us to aggregate on things and variables. I could also create variables that add on to variables. For example, let's say I have results. I want to put the rest of the sentence into another variable. Let's call it continuation. Put that there. And if I put result plus continuation, our output, let me just clear the line, the output will still be the same, because both result and continuation have strings, and they just are concatenated together, hence becoming this sentence. Now, you can't add a variable with a string type and add it to another variable that has an integer type, let's say like 6. If we run that in the terminal, we get an error. You can only concatenate strings, not integers, to strings. What that means is basically saying, well, I can't really add a string to a number, because then what am I going to do with this number? It's not a string, so what can I do in this situation? Well, there's something called casting in Python. Casting, what it does it allows us to turn whatever data type we have. For example, for continuation is an int, we could turn it into a string by doing simply str parentheses and set variable that you want to turn into a string. So let me add a space here. So if we run Python file in terminal, we see that the 6 now becomes a string. And we could do the same vice versa. For example, let's say result was a number, but it's a string. And let's say I want to add continuation with result. So 6 plus 5 would be 11. But since this is a string, well, I can't really add them. We just had that error. So I would do an int cast by literally putting int parentheses and then the variable name. And once I run that Python file in terminal, we have our output 11. So that covers basically what I wanted to talk about today for the first episode. Just the very basics of data types, integers, concatenation, arithmetic, and the introduction of Python variables. So I will see you in the next episode where we'll talk more in depth of strings and integers.